Welcome to your pre-class content for the second week of your Lamaze series. Today we're going to look at the first stage of labor. The first stage of labor is the opening part of labor. It's what happens before you get to the pushing part of labor, also known as second stage. Here you're looking at the three phases of the first stage of labor. What I want you to notice is that early labor is the longest part, and active labor is significantly shorter and usually more difficult than early labor. Transition, which is the last part of the first stage, is usually the shortest and most difficult. It actually marks the transition from the opening part of labor to the pushing part. Now let's look at each phase in more detail. Early labor starts out pretty mellow. Maternal oxytocin is building. Contractions are short, usually less than a minute in length, and can be sporadic with no distinct pattern. The key work of early labor is thinning and effacement of the cervix, but not dilating or opening much. Notice towards the end of early labor, contractions get closer together. They also get more intense. The contraction pattern becomes more predictable and consistent with contractions coming at very regular intervals. In active labor, the key work is actually dilating or opening the cervix. And the reason for that is that maternal oxytocin levels are very high, making contractions more frequent and highly coordinated. And that helps baby descend deeply into the pelvis and helps open the cervix much faster. Let's look at transition. It's the very last part of the first stage, and in transition you are rapidly moving towards the pushing part of labor. Towards that end, contractions become very intense and very close together, only about a minute to 3 minutes apart. This is usually the shortest part of labor. Okay, let's look at the key elements of the first stage of labor and what's important to recognize. Early labor is usually what takes the most time, and the work of early labor is effacement and thinning of the cervix with coordinated contractions and some dilation. Active labor is shorter than early labor, and the work of active labor brings baby deeply into the pelvis, helping dilate the cervix faster. The last and shortest part of the first stage of labor is transition. And in transition, your cervix fully dilates as your baby's head leaves the uterus and enters the upper part of the vagina. All right, thanks so much for listening, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in our next class.